Hello, everybody, and welcome to Walking Between Shadows. I'm Taryn Elliott, and along with me is my amazing husband.
I'm Ben Elliott.
And we're here to talk about true crime all the time.
Hey, Taryn.
Hey, Ben.
So we're back with Walking Between Shadows, and this is our 5th true crime episode, and you're going to be telling about Marlena Childress.
I am.
Yeah, so where's she from?
She is from Union City, Tennessee.
And is that where all this happened?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, not all of it. You'll see later on down the line it takes place some in Kentucky. Some of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know this was a disappearance, so tell me a little more about it. Tell me about the Marlena Childress case.
All right. Well, April the 16th of 1987. It was a beautiful, sunny, warm day in Union City, and little 4-year-old Marlena was playing outside, and her mom, Pam Bailey, was inside doing dishes. About 3:30, Pam heard a screeching, sounded like brakes, and looks outside and doesn't see Marlena.
So her 4-year-old's outside by herself.
Which is controversial.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean at this, and that was 1987, but that still seems pushing it.
Yeah, I wonder if she could even see her.
Right. Well, she claimed that she was outside around 3:30 that afternoon. Marlena's mother, Pam Bailey, hears like the brakes. It sounded like somebody was squealing tires or brakes were screeching.
Yeah.
And she runs outside and does not see Marlena. First, she thought maybe Marlena was hit by the car.
Mm-hmm.
But then finds out that Marlena was not there. Nowhere to be found. So at 4:15, she goes in and calls the sheriff's department, I believe. That would have been the O'Brien County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
Or it could have been the Union City Police Department. Maybe both. They show up and take a report. And the search begins.
Either way, she dialed 911.
She dialed 911.
Okay. And so, but we also know that Union City PD and the O'Brien County Sheriff's Office were involved in this investigation at some point.
Right. And this was this was around Easter. It was warm, So she was outside, with her little, I believe she had like little purple and pink pants and little short sleeve pink and purple shirt, and had on some little pink jellies. Do you remember jellies?
Yeah, I remember jellies. I remember my sister having to have some.
Yeah, those were the things. So that's kind of gives us an idea of 1987.
Yeah. And so what was the hit music? What was the hit song that year?
Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. So Pam.
Well, wait a minute. I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
And you may be getting to this, but Pam was there with Marlena, and it was just the two of them. Nobody else was around. Nobody else was in the house.
Nobody else was in the house. Now, Pam was remarried. This was her second marriage, and she was married to a man by the name of Johnny Bailey.
Yeah.
And he was 24 years old. Pam was 22. So she was a young mother. Marlena was 4. So you're looking at 18, 17, 18-year-old mother.
Yeah.
And she was married to Marlena's father, and his name was Kevin Childress.
Mm-hmm.
And these were, he was only 24, so they were both very young parents.
Mm-hmm. But Kevin was still living in the area when all this was going down.
I believe Kevin was still in the area, but I don't think he was very much present in Marlena's life.
Yeah, not involved.
Right.
Okay.
And I believe that at one point, they even looked into him and cleared him.
So we've got to the point where Marlena and her mom are at home, and her mom hears these screeching brakes.
Mm-hmm.
And her immediate thought is maybe the child got run over. When she goes out there,
right.
She doesn't find the child or any car even.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of glanced at a car, had an idea of what it was.
She claims that there was a red beaten up old vehicle out there, a car. Yeah. And when the police came and took the report, her stepson also claimed to see Marlena speaking to a man with Kentucky plates.
Yeah.
In a red beaten up vehicle. And I don't know where he was at the time. I don't think he must have been outside somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then another man that had a business about 2 blocks away claimed that he saw Marlena speaking with a man in a old red vehicle.
Yeah.
But this was 2 blocks away.
Well, there's some contention whether or not somebody could see that far, but I mean, you go to some of these residential neighborhoods that have these just straight, flat streets.
That's a possibility.
It's very possible. And I don't remember that much about Union City. We haven't been to the site where it happened, so it's hard to say, but I mean, just kind of what I vision is there's these long, straight streets. And,
right.
Maybe you could just step out on the curb and see quite a distance in either direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like 2 blocks, that would be like standing in front of City Hall and looking at somebody in front of the post office.
Right. That's possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that far.
No, it's
And
possible.
I'm referencing Trenton.
Right.
If you're standing in front of City Hall at Trenton, you can definitely see down past the post office.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
Well, so this man and Marlena's stepbrother claim that they see this man in a red vehicle with Kentucky plates leave with Marlena.
Mm-hmm.
And a little time goes by, maybe a week, 2 weeks, month. But Marlena's mother, Pam, understandably has pretty much a nervous breakdown from all this, and checks herself into a mental hospital and checks in with exhaustion and depression, which is understandable. I mean, I can imagine losing a child and not having any idea where that child could be.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, and the frantic pace that investigators want to start looking for a kid that's missing, I mean, they're probably questioning her every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, family usually is the number one suspect when things like this happen.
But, I mean, she was having a mental breakdown, and there was a lot of pressure.
And during this time, while Pam's in the hospital, there was some sightings of Marlena. One was in Memphis, Tennessee. I think that was the first sighting, was at a beauty shop, like a beauty salon in Memphis, and two ladies, one was about 60 and another that was in her 20s, came in with a 6 or 7 year old boy and a little girl that as soon as they put her in the chair, she started hollering, "I want my mother, I want my mommy, I want to go home."
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 women, the lady that was cutting her hair was like, what's going on? These women are really trying to console her.
Yeah.
But, maybe that's just how they are. And then the older lady says, "Marlena, if you're a good girl, we'll go to the movies."
Yeah.
So
now this story's being told from the perspective of the 2 stylists.
the 2 stylists that witnessed these 4 customers that came in. That would have been the boy, the 6-7-year-old boy, Marlena, and the 6-year-old woman and the 20-year-old woman.
Mm-hmm.
So they leave, and the lady that was cutting, the stylist that was cutting Marlena's hair, possibly Marlena's hair, goes to the convenience store to get whatever she needed and comes across a picture of Marlena on the front of the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And reports it to the police.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately reports it to the police.
Okay.
She says that it's a dead ringer. And, this little girl was being called Marlena. Marlena had caps on her top teeth and on her bottom teeth in the front. And she doesn't recall, this lady could not recall whether this little girl had caps on her teeth, which would be something that would probably stand out.
Yeah.
You know. But
I mean, essentially, she would have had a mouthful of silver teeth.
Right.
Yeah.
And you remember kids that, that's,
Yeah.
So, but she reports this and gets a phone call from Marlena's grandfather. His name was Wade Strickland. I believe that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he hires a private investigator as well. And he's looking into this himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets the 2 stylists and he brings them to Union City. Because he's been suspecting this waitress over there. There's something going on with this waitress. She absolutely did not even show up for work the morning that Marlena, or the day that Marlena came up missing. So she's something strange about this waitress.
Mm-hmm.
So he brings the two stylists in. They sit down and he asks them, "Do you recognize anybody in this restaurant?"
Yeah.
And they look around and no, and then they see her, and they say, "That's her." Are you sure?
So the stylist in Memphis that had supposedly seen Marlena with these two women and younger boy, that's who came to Union City to sit down with Marlena's grandfather. I'm just making sure I understand this. He invited them to come sit down with him.
Yeah.
Because of this waitress at the restaurant that he invited them to, he did not point this waitress out. He just said, "Do you see anybody you recognize?"
Yeah. And they both pointed her out very positively, pointed this woman out.
Mm-hmm.
So then he takes out 6 or 7 photos of little boys and lays them across the table and says, "Can you tell me which one of these boys, or was one of these boys in the picture, or at the salon with Marlena and these two women?" And they pointed out that waitress's son. Well, this waitress ended up going down to the police department and passing a lie detector test.
Mm-hmm.
No involvement.
Mm-hmm.
And then began harassing the two stylists,
Mm-hmm.
like calling them nonstop and threatening them. So,
he clearly didn't keep that on the down low. I mean,
absolutely not.
He went to the police and said they've identified this woman as having Marlena,
and this is where I'm confused, because he hired a private investigator. So why was he doing the investigating? I'm wondering.
I don't know.
Maybe he was just very concerned and.
Well, he said from the beginning he was very proactive. And he even operated the Marlena hotline.
He did.
Yeah, so he was very proactive. Maybe the private investigator was up in Kentucky looking.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Because there was,
there was a Kentucky connection in there somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Marlena's mother, Pam, gets out of the mental institution. She was there for about a week, 2.
Mm-hmm.
And she confessed to killing Marlena. She confessed to the private investigator.
Yeah.
And she confessed to the police.
What about her dad? Did she confess to him?
That I don't know. They didn't specify.
Mm.
So they go in to charge her for these, for this murder. And she recants her statement. So the story so far is that Marlena was taken from the front yard, a red vehicle, a man, and then Pam says that she killed her and threw her body in the Obion River.
Mm-hmm.
So the search went. They had to drag the river, and that went on for 5 days, and they found nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So she recanted her statement, and they let her go.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have enough evidence to charge her. There was no body. There was no evidence. There was nothing. It's like she disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know if it's because she was so mentally strained at that time that it might have been easier for her to think that Marlena was gone.
Well, now she made the statement that she had interviewed with an investigator that was from out of the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And he more or less convinced her to confess to it.
Right. And I listened to some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there absolutely was zero coercion there. If anything, he was trying to talk her down. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you just saying this because that's what you want to hear? That would be easier?
Yeah.
And no, I threw her in the river. I threw her there.
Right.
And I had help from a man by the name of R.L. Summers from Martin, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an older man.
And Martin's 20-30 minutes
right.
east of Union City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Pam had not had any, she hadn't seen this man in years.
So what was the connection though, even from back years ago?
Turns out that he molested Pam when she was a child. That's what she claims.
So he was a family friend or something at
Right.
the time? Yeah.
And she claims that he helped her dispose of Marlena's body in the Obion River. The police brought him in, and at the time when they brought him in, I'm not sure they knew that those accusations about him molesting Pam when she was a child, they knew about yet.
Mm-hmm.
He talked to the police, and he seemed very shocked by these allegations. No part of this.
Well, the allegations that he participated in Marlena's disappearance.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think they confronted him. If they did, they didn't mention they confronted him about any molestation that he had done to Pam. So he goes in and he brings his wife in, and they have an alibi. So he has a solid alibi. The police say it's solid enough to let him go.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone. Well, let's fast forward a little bit, and then in 1987, there was a sighting of Marlena too in Alabama, and it was with a family that was known for harboring children, which that's weird to me. I mean, if they're known for harboring children, so a social worker comes. I guess neighbors had called and made some complaints about their parenting skills,
mm-hmm.
or the children were not in bad shape.
Yeah.
And so a social worker shows up at the house of these children harborers, and there's a little girl there,
mm-hmm.
and she claims to be Marlena Childress.
Yeah.
And this is weird. This kind of happened in the Bethany Markowski case too.
Mm-hmm.
Where there was somebody that was portraying to be Bethany Markowski after she had been abducted.
Yeah.
So that's something but I think that was a little bit older of a child. So, I mean, this, with Bethany Markowski, I think.
Yeah, she was in her late teens when
Right.
that happened. Yeah.
And this is, Marlena would have only been, 4 still. I mean, this was the summer. So it would have been a couple months after she came up missing so the social worker goes and checks on it. Marlena, the little girl, claims to be Marlena Childress, but the family that's harboring these kids, their last name is Childress as well.
Mm-hmm.
No relation.
Huge coincidence.
Very huge.
Yeah.
So,
and they were in Anniston, Alabama, which, to put kind of a geographic location on that's due west of Atlanta. I mean, that's pretty deep down into Alabama. You're, over halfway the length from north to south down into Alabama.
Yeah.
So several hours of travel to get there from Union City.
Yeah. So the social worker goes back to the office and she makes a report. She knew good and well Marlena was missing.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a national story. National. It was huge. And so she goes and makes this report and goes back to the house the next day with the officers she needed to have with her.
Mm-hmm.
They're gone. They're gone.
Like the house has been emptied, gone?
Gone. All these kids that were there, and Marlena, and this mother and father.
Right. And the social worker goes one day, finds it suspicious enough to go back the next day, and they're gone.
They're gone.
Slipped through her fingers.
Slipped right through her fingers.
Wow.
The family was located in Florida, though. Not many days later,
Mm-hmm.
and Marlena was not there. The little girl was gone.
Mm-hmm.
I hope there was a charge there. I mean, why do they got these kids?
Well, I mean, there is this kind of foster child network where these people have these kids that they take care of and they claim, for tax purposes. The Schmitz here in Trenton. Yeah. I mean, they had several kids. It wasn't just 2 or 3. And they're treated like scum,
Yeah.
But yet they're there for tax purposes and to earn money.
Get a check.
You get a check. Yeah.
That's awful.
And so I kind of think, I've heard rumblings before of this kind of black market trade of kids that for getting those checks, really.
Right.
And, it's not too dissimilar from like the sex trafficking trades and stuff like that. Only this is just to get money a different way. And after hearing that, it's what it sounds like to me.
Well, that was the summer, and they caught up with the family in Florida because he had been charged with molestation and raping some of the other children that were in the home.
Yeah.
So it's sick bastard.
Yeah.
But
of course,
the little girl was gone, and whether they had hit her or sold her or whatever. And that takes us even to another confession that Pam made during this time. And she stated that she had sold Marlena for a drug debt. Now, that's something that was never proven either. And they couldn't really charge her because there was no evidence.
Yeah, because she sure couldn't tell who she was indebted to for that one.
Right. Well, in September of 1989, a lady by the name of Amy Spoon was in the mall with her kids, her two boys. And they were playing, and she noticed they were kind of playing with a little girl in one of the toy stores at the mall. And she turned around to move her sons kind of out of the way of the aisle, and she ended up running kind of into a little girl that looked just like Marlena Childress. And she kind of was taken off guard. This little girl is missing. And as soon as she kind of was trying to get another glimpse of her, a lady was telling her to get over here, and took her away.
Yeah.
And she got a flyer in the mail a couple of days later and confirmed that was Marlena.
Where was this?
This was in Lenoir City, Tennessee.
Okay.
So, and that would have been in 89, so 2 years after the disappearance of Marlena.
Yeah, Lenoir City's a little south and west of Knoxville.
Yeah. Time goes by, and Pam eventually moves to Kentucky with her parents. And I guess that would have been her dad that was helping out so much, and her mother, and ends up having more children. And I believe it was April. It was April of 2002. So it was very close to the anniversary of Marlena's disappearance. She took her 12-year-old son to a cemetery in Kentucky where she had moved to. And it was a remote little cemetery. And blindfolded him and inscribed the words son, or inscribed the word son on the knife, and then started stabbing him. He got away, and she was charged with attempted murder. And she served 10 years in prison for that and was released in 2012. So
this was her son that she had after Marlena had disappeared.
Yes.
He was born around 1990. And so after she got out of prison, was she ever recorded saying anything else about Marlena?
No, not to my knowledge.
So that's it. That's where it goes completely cold.
It goes completely cold. I don't think there was any more sightings of Marlena after that. And they ran a episode on Unsolved Mysteries in 1990. The family asked them to take that down after it ran. Very weird.
So do you think it was Marlena's mom? I mean, is Marlena's dad, the grandfather that did so much early on looking for her, is he still living? Do we know anything about him?
No idea. And that's what I mean by it went cold.
Yeah.
No one has ever been charged in the disappearance or murder of Marlena. No body has ever been found. And no one has stuck to their confession.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing what she did to her son, it's one thing to have a mental breakdown from the loss of your child. It's another to try to kill your other kid.
Yeah.
So I guess we could just say,
do you think she's dead?
yes.
You think Marlena's dead?
I do.
See, I don't. I think she's still out there.
She claimed that she was over disciplining her and slapped her, and she hit her head up against a table. My real dad, I remember this story. I remember this happening. I was in Jackson with my dad and my stepsister and half brother, and I remember this story very well. And I remember hearing that Marlena hit her head off of a console TV, and they disposed of her body. I honestly think that her mother killed her.
Yeah. You think the guy in Martin really had something to do with it too?
I do. I think that he. I don't think he took her. And see, that's what she was claiming.
Yeah.
That the man that took her, it just happened to have a red beat up car. Well, so did the man that.
From Martin.
Yes, R.L. Summers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but how do you explain all these sightings?
Like any other, I think that people want to insert themselves sometimes.
Or they hold out hope that she's still alive.
Or absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but it's a long stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, it's been what, 30?
Well, it happened in when?
87?
87?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's 35 years.
35 years.
Yeah.
Marlena would almost be 40 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, so I think I have to be the optimist and hold out hope that she's still out there somewhere.
Well, of course.
And one day she's going to realize that maybe there's a story she should tell.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Right, but what, like J.C. Dugard, I mean, 18, 19 years held captive. But this is 30-something years. And nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and maybe she's been talked into losing her identity.
Or
maybe she's dead.
Maybe her grandfather backed off when he found out his daughter
really killed her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want to lose two. Don't want to lose my daughter and my granddaughter.
Yeah, that could be the case.
I mean, he had a $50,000 reward at one time.
And I think maybe that makes people see, I saw him.
Right.
I mean, I've seen a sighting. I've got a sighting because there's a $50,000 reward out there. I don't know. That's not very altruistic. So.
Well, people are people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, anything else?
Well, if anybody has any information on this case, go to the Obion County Sheriff's Department.
Or email us.
Or email us, and we'll get it.
We'll get it to the authorities.
We'll get it to the right people.
Yep. And Marlena, if you're still out there, send us an email. We'll keep your secrets.
Right.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. This has been Walking Between Shadows. Again, I'm your host, Ben Elliott, and my wife, Taryn Elliott. Look for our next episodes coming soon, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.